Hey guys, welcome back to Crawl TV. It's raining outside, but that's okay because we're not working on the Wrangler today. Today we're going to be replacing the water pump on Grace's 2011 Grand Cherokee Limited Edition with the 5.7 liter Hemi. It's got about 82,000 miles on it now, so it is after the lifespan of the factory water pump, but it went bad, and a coworker actually noticed today that there was a puddle beneath it. You can see some of that red coolant residue on the engine and stuff. But we're hanging out, working indoors today. Grace is doing some video editing here because we've got a lot of stuff to catch up on with all the videos that we've already filmed and have yet to edit and push out. So we're going to be working on this simultaneously, video and Jeep, and Grace is going to step in when I need an extra set of hands here and there. But we're going to get this knocked out here in the garage, so let's get started. We're going to start by removing the radiator cap and the engine cover here. Now that we've opened this up on top, we'll go ahead and open the petcock at the bottom of the radiator so that we can drain what little antifreeze is left inside of this radiator. Now, to get to the petcock at the bottom of this radiator, we actually have to remove the plastic guard that's underneath the Jeep. When the Jeep is on a lift, that's not a problem at all because it's right above your head, but when it's in the garage, you only have about a foot of space and it's really dark, so I'm going to climb under and get started. Okay, that should theoretically be low enough to access that petcock now, so let's take a look. There she is, lower driver's side, petcock. Alright, now I have a board propping the lower cover down so that we can get this drip pan as close as possible. Theoretically, this should work. This isn't exactly how I would do it if I was in a shop. But we have to get this guard out of the way, and it's very difficult to work underneath the Jeep on a garage floor, so we removed the front so we can access that petcock, and now we can get to it to drain it. So here's what we got out of it. Depending on how blown your water pump is and how far you drove it after the water pump blew, you might get no coolant out of your radiator, but not much there, probably a half gallon, and yeah, we just had it set up to pour into this drip pan. That board actually worked as a pretty good backboard, but the spigot kind of directed it right into this pan, so all's good here. Now we'll just get this out of the way. And close that spigot back up, because that's a classic mistake to get all finished up, pour coolant back into the radiator, and have it pour right out the bottom. Nice and tight. And we can put this lower engine cover back in place. Now we just have to remove this intake from the airbox here and then from the throttle body here. Go ahead and do that now. La-di-da-di-da, one hose clamp here. One hose clamp here, and then that looks like a 10 millimeter. I'll grab my wrench, which is on the floor. Where is it? Oh, there it is.
On a moving box.
On a moving box. And we'll get this pulled out of here. We have one air intake temperature sensor here. Just a pinch and pull to remove that wire from the sensor. And this thing is out of here. Goodbye, airbox. Our next step is to remove this, well, not remove it, but we're going to move this upper radiator hose out of the way so that we can get to the belt tensioner. We're just using a pair of channel lock pliers here. We're just going to pinch these two ends together on this clip and then pull it out of the way. Perfecto. Serpentine belt is automatically tightened by a tensioner on a spring, so we just have to get a wrench on the tensioner and turn it to loosen the belt so that we can pull it off of here. You can use a 3/8 ratchet, and there's a square hole in the tensioner pulley. So you just get your ratchet set in it, and then with some leverage from whatever you've got, we've got an old bent axle truss from another project that we are going to use to pull this thing, loosen the belt, and then pull the belt off. There we go. It doesn't need a ton of pressure, you just need to get that belt loose. And then pull your ratchet out, of course. The belt comes out right behind it. There we go. We're actually going to junk this belt because we bought a new belt knowing that we had to replace the water pump. Not sure when this belt was replaced. It looks like it's in fine condition, but since we're underneath the hood, we already have the belt removed. We've driven this Jeep for about 35,000 miles since we bought it. No idea.
You're kidding, right?
Yeah,
No, about 50,000.
we bought it with 50 on it.
No.
No?
No.
Oh. Okay, so we have no idea how many miles are on this belt, but we're gonna trash it. Thanks, Grace.
It's my daily driver.
Now we're gonna remove the idler pulley and tensioner pulley. Idler pulley is right here, and it is a 13 millimeter. I gotta have the ratchet set to the correct direction. So start. Now I should be able to get it off. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Inside of the idler pulley, you have a bearing. So occasionally these bearings do wear out as well, and if the bearing seizes, the idler pulley will seize. You'll see coloration on the top of the pulley here, where it'll turn like a purplish color because the belt is basically scraping along it and heating it up in one point until the belt eventually breaks. That's happened to us before on our Cherokee, or not a Grand Cherokee, but the XJ Cherokee. And with this removed, we're going to move on to the tensioner pulley. Tensioner pulley is a 15 millimeter. And yeah, also not too bad. It wasn't like, you know, Hulk tight.
Did you say maybe just Guten tight?
It was Guten tight, but it wasn't Hulk tight. Yeah. Now you have to pull off this tensioner pulley first before you try and pull the water pump off, because this is actually going to be blocking one of your bolts if you try and do it in a reverse order. But there we go. That just pops right out of there. The pulley can stay on the tensioner because we're going to be putting this back in once we get the new water pump in. Now we can remove the hoses from the water pump assembly here. We'll start with this upper radiator hose because it's the easiest, and I'm lazy, and actually it might get it out of the way so that we can access the lower hose that's beneath it. This is another, a 13 millimeter. One bolt down, get the next one off here. There's a lot of threads on these bolts. Okay, there it is. I was like, geez, I've been turning that thing for days. If you guys were wondering what's behind this upper radiator hose, since there is a metal end on it, I'll show you here. Something else that we're going to be replacing when we do this water pump assembly is replacing the thermostat. And you can see the thermostat, the actual rubber bushing that holds that in place is just not in place. So, I mean, it wasn't leaking around the thermostat, but probably due time to replace that anyways. So to pull that off of here, we're just going to use a flathead screwdriver, which I thought I had, but apparently I don't.
Here it is.
Oh, thanks, Grace.
Yep.
So the thermostat just kind of pops out. It just pushes into place when you replace it. So I think that these ones are rated for 203 degrees Fahrenheit. So once it gets to that point, basically what happens is it builds up enough pressure to open that thermostat and let the hot coolant pass through it. So that's what manages the temperature. I don't know if you can see that, but it actually says 203.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
203. So you can read right on the thermostat what it's rated for. There's some fluid still in here where the thermostat was, nice and hot, but it's just, you know, drops. It's negligible. I don't have to clean that up or anything. Just kidding. Grace grabbed me a paper towel. We're cleaning it up. So at least that way it doesn't drip on our garage floor.
It's my daily driver you're talking about. Let's not take any shortcuts.
I'm sorry. Now I already took a shortcut by draining the radiator that way, but now we can remove the lower hose here. You just need a pair of pliers, preferably channel locks. You just got to like pinch the ends together to make that thing wider so that you can remove it from the water pump housing. You get a bite on that. Squeeze up. Try not to lose it every single time. Oh, come on now. Come on. Oh, come on. Really? There we go. It's just being a little stubborn. It was happy where it was, as most things on vehicles are. Somebody put it there a long time ago, and it moved in. It settled down, bought some furniture, had kids. You know, planned for retirement, and now here I am uprooting it. There we go. There goes your 401k, buddy. No.
Uprooting doesn't take away your 401k.
Well, he lost it all. He invested in the wrong stocks. The market collapsed. Okay, so now we can just kind of wedge a screwdriver in there, remove the hose from that spigot, and with a little bit of motivation, it should twist and pull right off. Yeah, like a glove. Okay, upper hose is gone, lower hose is gone, thermostat's gone. On to the next step. Now we can remove the heater hose. There's a 10mm bolt that holds it in place, and this is a hard line secured by a grommet. So we're gonna remove the bolt that holds it in place, and then hopefully, yeah, wiggle that out of the way. So sometimes when you're working on a vehicle, karate is necessary. Sometimes. 10mm out. I'm here to do two things. Pry and remove heater hoses. And I'm all out of neither of those yet. Come on now. There we go. Nice and easy, and it's out. Perfect. Seeing if this is your typical pinch and pull, or if it's pull your hair out. Can't tell yet. There we go. With a push and a pull. Now we're going to remove this water temperature sensor here with a 19mm. Since this is plastic, a full-size socket is the best way to approach this. If you try and use a wrench, like I did earlier, you may not get a good enough bite to actually remove it. Nope, this is not hyperspeed. I am very fast. And there it is. Water temperature sensor's out. Now we'll just remove the nut that holds this bracket on here. I've got a 5/8 wrench. It seems to fit it pretty happily. We'll pull this thing right off of here. Oh, that nut's hot, and now it's lost forever. It's somewhere underneath the Jeep.
Do you need tiny hands?
It did not hit the ground. Yeah, I need tiny hands. And now for the real feature presentation. We're actually going to remove these 11 bolts. Once again, 13mm on these. Here's one. And it's fairly long. Can't get a wrench in there. So we'll move on to number 3. Down here. And by the way, I am eventually going to lose count. So I doubt I'll remember that that one was number 2. Number 3 is not nearly as long. I'm probably going to have to watch this video back to see how these all go back in. They're all different lengths, I think. Number 4, right up here above where the tensioner pulley was. Oh, number 4. Why are you being so stubborn? Might have to get the socket out. Okay, socket. I'm going to go back to number 2 so I don't forget it. Number 2 is another shorty, just like number 3. Now, number 4. Much less stubborn with a deep socket here. Number 4 is a long one, just like number 1. Okay, number 5 we're going to have to get to with a wrench. because it's behind the power steering pulley there. Oh boy, where did I put my wrench? Did I set it down?
You need to get you a work table.
Yeah, I'm kind of losing my mind. Keep setting things out all over the place. Oh, there it is. Number 5. It's back here behind this pulley with as little room to work as possible, of course. That might be best with a well, if I use a short socket, I'll back it up into the pulley. So, I have to access it from beneath. Luckily, I have these flexible head wrenches that Grace got me for Christmas.
Woo-hoo.
So, I'm going to try from the bottom side.
Merry Christmas.
It's paying off big time. You filthy animal.
You can keep it down. I'm trying to edit over here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm just trying to film a video. I'm on number 5.
I heard you lose count like 3 times already.
No, so far I'm doing good. Number 5 is a shorty. So far they're all one of 2 lengths, long or short. Now number 6. Let's see. Where you at? There it is. Okay, so we're going to use a socket for this one. It's right beneath the tensioner pulley mount there. Luckily, these are all, once you break them free, they're all pretty willing to come out. Number 6 is a long one. That means there's 5 left. Where the heck are these things? Okay, there's another one directly beneath the water pump itself. There we go. I can tell already 6 is a nice long one. Nope. Apparently I'm not very good at that. 6 is a short one. 7. Grace is laughing at me. 7's right here beneath where the tensioner pulley goes, above the lower.
Here you go.
Oh. Yeah, I actually
I bought
used
this just for you.
I used that Haynes manual to see how many bolts I was going to have to pull out. It's actually extremely handy. This is the first time I've really done anything under the hood on this Jeep with a Hemi in it, so Grace,
I love this manual.
Grace normally does all the work on this Jeep, but since we have to drive this thing to work tomorrow and she's editing videos, this just seemed like a good... This one's extremely long. What number is this? 8?
7.
Are you sure?
You said 7.
Okay, number 7. Number 7 is the long one. New record. Now, number 8. Where are you? Where are you? You're hiding on me.
I'm just going off your count, but you lost count earlier, so could be 8. Check out our new bumper install video if you want to see Jarrett lose count again. That's what I'm working on.
Let's see here. Oh, there's one right there. We'll call this Houdini, because it was right in front of my face hiding. Well, no, Houdini wasn't a hider. He was an escaper.
Haynes manual calls that number 3. We're going to call it number 8.
All right, number 8.
Yeah, you got this? I'm going to go at it.
Yeah, set that down. 8. Shorty. Ah, I found 9. Directly beneath the thermostat. It's a long one. So we were actually looking at the Haynes manual diagram, and I didn't look at it too closely. I just counted all the little arrows that showed 11 volts, and it said that 2010 and earlier models are what they were referring to. It said that 2011 and later are similar. So with basic reductive reasoning here, we just pulled out the new water pump.
Deductive reasoning.
Yeah, that's what I meant. We just pulled out the new water pump and counted all the bolt holes. Guess which one we were missing? The most obvious. Front and center. Mister, you are out of there. Let's get to work. It's either, it might be a nut. We'll check it out here in a second. It could be a stud, but it's a 15 millimeter to pull it off. And it looks like it is a bolt with just, a stud sticking out the head. So, we won't forget where that guy goes because he's a very individual looking bolt. Now we'll just pry this thing out of here with a flathead screwdriver. I'll put it right behind the thermostat housing here. Uh-oh. The water just broke.
I didn't even know you were pregnant. This is a surprise.
Surprise. Pregnant, and I didn't even know it.
Are we calling this an accident or a mistake?
This one was, well, it was just kind of a secret. But here's the old water pump and the gasket fits right inside the channels inside of it, but it's out of there. You can see where it was starting to leak here, right along where all the dirty part on the gasket is. There's some corrosion, and that's where our problem started. The bearing inside of it was actually still okay, but just somehow or another eventually wore through until it started leaking water. Now there's a bunch of corrosion on this plate, so we are going to clean that up before we start putting the new, I almost said throttle body, water pump back in place. And we've got a sponge. I just kind of soaked it in the antifreeze that we had in that little tub, so I'm not using any cleaning chemicals or anything. It doesn't take much. I just want to make sure that the surfaces are clean of any debris so that the gasket does seat, especially where it started leaking over here. Clean up the end of that heater hose, and now we can just wipe it all off. Beautiful! Beautiful! I made a friend.
Yeah?
Hi, Mr. Moth. This is a big old guy. It's dark out now, so they're attracted to the light, and they are coming to join us for this water pump install.
Is that kind of like the horsefly that we found on the...
Yeah, but he's a lot more friendly than the horsefly.
Ah, cutie.
Yeah. He needs to go now, though. Go. Go!
Here, try and get me. Come on. I'll take you outside. Come here.
There
Come
we
on,
go.
sticky fingers.
Bye, friend.
I'll take him out.
Now, before we throw the new gasket in place, I'm going to use some red RTV and actually follow the channels that the gasket will seat in, and just put some RTV in there. Normally, I'm really bad about over RTVing things, so I actually got the correct nozzle for this thing so that I only apply a very thin bead. And we'll fill it all the way up to the top, just like a syringe. There we go. And we'll just run it along the channel here. I feel like those ladies that make cakes.
You're right. It's way less RTV than you normally use.
Oh, yeah. All right. Now, we can put the gasket in. Obviously, this gasket's only going to go in one way. So based off of the shape, I'm going to assume it's this way. That's right, Grace. I'm assuming something.
I'm sorry, I'm editing. I wasn't paying attention. What are you assuming?
That this is how the gasket goes in.
Oh, no. Well, it looks right from over here.
Oh, that's good. You heard it here, folks. We got the official seal of approval.
I said from over here. You know I don't have the best eyesight.
All right. It's in. And we're on to the next step. Our new water pump also came with a new O-ring that we'll use for the heater hose here. And let's get that old one out of the way first so that we can install the new one. I'll grab my flathead screwdriver again and see if we can just get this guy off easily. Oh, come on. There we go. And it looked like that one had some red RTV on it as well. Now the new gasket can go right over that, or sorry, the new O-ring can go right over this and seat happily there. We'll clean up a little bit of that RTV. Alright, now we can put this thing back in place and thread the bolts finger tight. So, keep that gasket inside of the channel here. Make sure that that's properly seated all the way around before we get started. That'll start us off on the right foot. Now our bolt slash stud can only go in one place, so we'll put that in next. Every single time I pick up one of these gear wrenches, I start turning it in the wrong direction, so it just does this. 50, 50, 90. And a short bolt will go here, right behind the idler pulley. Short guy will go back into place behind the heater hose here. Another one of the medium long. There is one extra long one, but this is one of the generally long ones. This is going to go right here, right above where the tensioner pulley goes. This guy behind the power steering pump is a short one. Kind of a hard to access place. This is one I had to come up from the bottom side to get to. So I used the flex head 13mm, which I've got handy here. And that one's hand tightening all the way in. He's happy to go home. Okay, so no need for a wrench on that one. Directly beneath where the tensioner pulley goes is a long bolt. Here is, find the hole, there it is, okay. That one also threads in really easily. The next guy is directly beneath our new water pump pulley here. Tilt the camera down for you, and you probably still won't be able to see it because it's underneath the pulley, but let's see. Now it's time for our super duper extra long bolt. This is number 7, or at least that's what it was when we pulled it out. I don't think I'm going back in all the exact order here, but this one is going to go right here, right above our lower hose connecting barb part of the water pump. Water hump, I almost said water hump. And that's hand tightening in. Now we can put this short guy in, right here above the thermostat. And last but not least, right above our idler pulley, we're going to have one of the medium long guys. One of the longer ones until we found that one really long one. Now we'll get all these tightened down in a crisscross pattern. Crisscross! Oh, I'm so glad that it fell all the way to the ground. We just turn the water pump by hand to make sure it's still rotating freely, which it is. And we're on to the next step. Now we'll reinstall the hoses, starting with the lower radiator hose here. This is the one that was happy where it was when we pulled it off, and it's not happy to go onto a new water pump. Guess what, buddy? You're gonna have to start your life over. All right, now we just have to adjust the band on this thing. There we go, all the way up. So, that guy's on there. Now for the heater hose, I'll pull that bolt out that we used. Now, we push the heater hose right back into place and tighten it back in. That's a 10mm bolt. Oh yeah. We'll reinstall our sensor with a 19mm here. Actually, I can probably start it with a hand to make sure that those fragile plastic threads go in correctly. And now we'll thread our socket onto it and hand tighten this guy, and then just give it a couple turns, not a lot, with a ratchet. Okay, that's probably good. Reattached. Over to the other side, we'll install our new thermostat. We'll start by putting the thermostat gasket on the thermostat. There's a thin slice inside of this that the metal ring of this thermostat fits into. Now, just drop the thermostat into the new water pump. Fits very nicely. It's time to reinstall our tensioner assembly. That'll fit right into place here. It's not as pretty as the new part. There's quite a contrast there between what aluminum looks like before and after corrosion. Okay, and now we'll shift over here to our idler pulley, and it takes a 13mm to tighten it down. It's important to hold the bearing up while you're doing this. Hold the bearing so that it seats up nicely against this, so that when you tighten it down, you're making sure to tighten it down with the head of this bolt going inside of the race of that bearing so that it can spin freely once it's installed. Check that it spins freely, and it does. And now we're ready to install the upper hose. So let's get them back around, seat over top of that thermostat. And we'll use these two bolts here that we removed earlier to secure this back in place. And once again, it takes a 13 millimeter to tighten this thing down. Okay. Before we can call this complete, we've got one final bracket to install here. And it's just that one nut that holds this in place. There's a 5/8 wrench we used to remove it. All right. Excellent. Party time. We need to reinstall our new belt. So not reinstall, install for the first time our new belt here before we can throw the intake back on. And if we get this upper intake tube out of the way, we can start fishing it around, get it into place. Okay, so I've got it all lined up, but I am going to need to loosen the tension on the tensioner with that 3/8 wrench again inside of that square hole. And with some leverage on it. There we go. Get it all set up. Then you just reattach the upper hose up here. Like that. And we can put the intake back on now. Now the intake just drops right in place. There's one 10 millimeter bolt that we'll use to secure the tube here, but the intake tube just connects right back to the air box and the throttle body with hose clamps. Nice and easy. So here's that 10 millimeter bolt. Hose clamp number 1. And hose clamp number 2 over here at the air box. Now the last thing to do before you pour water into it is to reconnect this air intake temperature sensor here that connects to the intake tube. Simple snap, and it's in. We're ready to pour water in this thing. It's all put back together. Now we're going to top the radiator off. The reservoir already has enough coolant in it. I had a filter, or a funnel in. What did I do with it? Oh, there it is. What we'll do is we'll put the funnel in it, top the radiator off, and then once this fills up, we'll start the engine and let this burp itself, because there's going to be plenty of air in the cooling system. And then once that's all done, we just need to check it for leaks and make sure that we didn't forget a step or mess anything up or forget to tighten the bolt, which I'm pretty sure I triple checked everything, so hopefully that's not the case. Alright, let's start it up and burp the engine here, burp the cooling system with the engine running. As that water pump starts to spin, it'll start cycling water and all that air will come to the top. This will bubble and we'll pour more in to make sure that it's leveled off and topped off. Another thing that you're going to want to do is turn the heat all the way on high, so that'll actually circulate all the coolant through the heater core before that thermostat opens up. But we're going to want this engine to run until the thermostat opens and purges all the rest of that air out of the system. So the vehicle has to get up to operating temperature before that thermostat will open up. And we're getting pretty close running the heat. The air is still coming out very, very cool. But we have about another 20, 35 degrees to go. Now we're getting up to operating temperature. You can see that that's starting to overflow. It's pulsing. Pretty soon that thermostat will open up. That might bubble over quite a bit, but that's the point. Now you can see it sucked a bunch in. That thermostat just opened. Good news, guys. Once that thermostat opened, you saw the big bubble over and then the massive suck inward. Basically, it just popped open. There was enough heat, enough pressure to pop that spring and allow all that air to pass through that thermostat, and then it needed to be filled with fluid. So that's where the coolant came in and replaced it. Now we've got this leftover coolant remaining in the funnel. We're going to let the engine cool for just a second, then we'll pull the funnel off and put the radiator cap back on, and we'll be all done. So we've got 2 steps left. Replace the engine cover and put the radiator cap back on. If I was at a shop, I'd have a funnel that has a plug in the bottom of it so that you don't waste all this coolant. I don't just want to lift the funnel off and pour the coolant all over the place in the garage because we already have enough on the floor. So what I'm going to do in an effort to conserve some of this coolant that we still have is use a paper towel, stuff it down in the bottom of this coolant here, in the bottom of our funnel, and then I'm just going to drop it right into the radiator overflow because that way it's not wasted. Look at that. MacGyvered. Now we'll pull the paper towel back out. And saved it. Now we'll put the radiator cap back on. Close that lid. Replace our engine cover. I'm going to end up taking a water hose after I back this out of the garage and spraying off all this excess coolant so that it doesn't dry to everything. Ladies and gentlemen, install complete. Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're done?
I am all done.
Finally.
Oh, come on,
Can I have
really?
my Jeep back?
Is that video edited?
I'm working on it. Alright, let's back this thing out of here.
Alright.
I turned around to edit for 1 hour, and this is what I come back to. Apparently my water pump has changed.
It sure is.
Now to clean up the garage. Well, thanks for watching. Crawl TV.
Yeah.